This fight over the Save America Act, the president wants to rein in mail-in voting. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, actually, a big decision came out today. In fact, Shannon, a few hours ago, a federal judge blocked the president's executive order on that, declaring it unconstitutional.
So a key ruling out of Boston today, a federal district court essentially struck down an executive order in which the president sought to get voter data, voter rolls from states, and was going to penalize those that didn't give up their privacy, their data, to the federal government by saying that we will not deliver your absentee ballots unless you do.
Donald Trump's plan to seize more control over mail-in voting has been stopped in federal court. Trump signed an executive order that attempted to give federal agencies sweeping new power over who receives a mail ballot. The Department of Homeland Security would assemble citizenship lists. States would be pressured to hand over voter data, and the United States Postal Service would be told simply not to deliver mail ballots to voters who did not appear on said federal list. But an Obama-appointed federal judge in Boston has now blocked the core of that plan.
In Boston, a federal judge today halted President Trump's executive order, which aimed to regulate mail-in voting and create a federal voter list. In her ruling, Judge Indira Telwani sided with nearly 24 states in finding that, quote, the Constitution does not grant the president any specific powers over elections. Her decision would apply to the November midterms, though the White House plans to appeal.
Trump's order directed the Department of Homeland Security to build lists of confirmed citizens using federal databases. Now states would then have to provide their voter rolls, and the Postal Service would deliver mail ballots only to voters whose names match the federal list, which of course could lead to several errors across the board and catastrophic consequences. Say a citizen left off the list because of outdated records, a name change, a database mismatch, or an administrative error could simply fail to receive a ballot.
So yes or no, if a state refuses to turn their absentee voter list over to the federal government, will the Postal Service still mail their ballots under this proposal rule?
Under our proposed regulation, no. We would tell the state that we need the manifest in order to, look, what we're asking for.
I mean, that's the answer. You would tell no.
But in striking down that overreach by the president, this is what the court in Boston had to say. The Constitution does not grant the president any specific powers over elections. So this ruling is in effect through the midterm elections. We can expect an appeal from the Trump administration, but according to law and Constitution, this is the correct ruling, and we hope that it's affirmed.
The judge found that Trump exceeded his authority. I know, shocking, right? The Constitution gives state legislators the power to establish election procedures, subject, of course, to laws passed by Congress. It does not give the president a general authority to completely redesign election administration through executive orders, which Trump attempted to do by presidential directive, which normally requires legislation. And that is becoming a recurring pattern for the president, right? When Congress does not give him the power he wants, he just claims it anyway. But this is bad news for Trump on several levels. Legally, it blocks a central part of his election agenda. Politically, it makes him look like a president who is panicking and trying to manipulate the machinery of an election his party fears they might lose. But more than anything, strategically, it signals to states that they can resist his efforts to manipulate further elections.
We're talking here about the congressional procedures and priorities and nuance, as you say. The argument from the White House or from the president is the Save America Act is a national emergency, therefore everything has to be held for that. This is the only president in any of our lifetimes who has sought to overturn a democratic election by inciting a mob to do so. That is the person that we are now to believe is so exercised by protecting the integrity of the voting system that everything else has to stop to create it. That just doesn't seem plausible to me.
I mean, just yesterday he was saying he called the U.S. attorney to ask him to do him a favor. Right. And help the Republican in California get on the ballot.
But the point, Trump wanted every state election office to operate under the threat of federal punishment. Now, instead, states have a federal ruling saying that the president crossed the constitutional line. And the timing is impossible to ignore with the November midterms fast approaching. Control of Congress, of course, is at stake, and Republicans are already facing public dissatisfaction over several things like the economy, the Iran conflict, healthcare costs, and Trump's declining approval.
And then the Wall Street Journal had a report that Iran is definitely stuck on charging for ships transiting through the Strait of Hormuz, and that they're planning on making billions of dollars by doing that. And suddenly oil reversed and went higher. So that piece of inflation is still affecting consumers, considering before the war it was $67 a barrel, and we got inflation numbers today, the PCE, and they matched, but there were some pretty worrisome questions there. I mean, you started to see that year over year, up 4.1% for the headline, and that's not good. Again, that's really, really high compared to what the Fed would like it to be at, which is 2%. Year over year, core was certainly a match. I believe it was. No, actually, let's see, core, 1.6%. That's capital expenditures for durables. So, you know, the PCE, I just think at 3.4% was a match, still too high.
And then suddenly the administration wants to change how mail ballots are distributed nationwide. I mean, that doesn't look like a neutral election reform developed over several years. It looks like a president staring at a very difficult upcoming election and trying to alter the rules before votes are even cast. And it's not like it's been a secret either. Trump's Postmaster General had reportedly told senators he would refuse to deliver mail ballots in states that did not provide their voter rolls to the administration. And Trump continues to justify these policies with unsubstantiated claims about widespread election fraud and non-citizen voting, which, by the way, when he's asked to provide any substantiated evidence, he just throws a fit and leaves mid-interview.
Crooked press, people like stupid Biden, he's not smart enough to know what's going on, but people that surrounded him, surrounded his beautiful, resolute desk in the Oval Office, what they did to the lives of people, they destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
All right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying, but let me ask you about Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk about Todd Blanche.
There's tremendous evidence. There's nothing but evidence. The election was rigged. It was a dirty election.
Mr.
And it's
President,
happening again right now in California.
You've never presented evidence.
It's happening
that the
right now in California.
Rigged.
Right now, it's look at what's happening in California.
Where's the evidence to that?
It's
the
4 days.
The Republicans are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days, and they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count.
You know why they're doing that? Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not evidence.
And I listen. And I listen to people. And let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in California.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in California.
They're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
well,
continue.
You play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I got that? Because you have no credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd Blanche.
You have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk about
your elections in this country. We're like a third world country.
But, sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But, Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour, on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr. President,
a country can never be great with a dishonest press.
We traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
As we know, widespread non-citizen voting has not been demonstrated. Mail voting has been used for years by Republicans, Democrats, military personnel, older voters, disabled voters, and people unable to reach a polling place on Election Day. I mean, hell, Trump himself votes by mail, so it's safe for him. but suspicious when used by everyone else. And the administration was sued by a large coalition that included Democratic-led states, the District of Columbia, and voting rights organizations. Their argument was that Trump was unlawfully interfering with powers held by the states. The judge agreed, and it's not like this is an isolated event. Trump has repeatedly tried to expand presidential power over elections. Hell, the man cannot get in front of a crowd and not discuss the fact that he won 3 elections.
You ever hear the fake news? They say that's an 80-20 issue. No, it's not. It's 99-1. You know, I've been doing politics now for 10 years. Not that long, considering I've won 3 elections. You know, so but we did great in the second one. It was a rigged deal.
He has pressured state officials. He's attacked election workers, demanded changes to voting machines, targeted mail ballots, and pushed for proof of citizenship requirements, all while portraying any restriction on his authority as just evidence of further conspiracy. The pattern is clear. Trump does not merely want to compete under the current set of election rules. He wants control over who writes them, who enforces them, and who is permitted to participate. And that is why this ruling is so important, because it's not merely about envelopes and databases. It's about whether a president can use executive power to shape the electorate. So yeah, this is a major setback for Trump, delivered by an Obama-era judge.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.